Hi, welcome back to Family Bonds. Um, these are the parent session videos. And today we're going to be going over behavioral principles. So again, I'm Christian Ortiz, Pediatric Behavioral Health Program Manager of Del Rio. I'm a licensed professional counselor and also a board certified behavior analyst. So today we're going to be we're going to go over behavioral principles. And I'm going to do a follow-up video on how do we use the knowledge of behavioral principles to be able to help with increasing desired behaviors and decreasing undesired behaviors. I know from past experiences, this is the area that people mostly struggle with. And I'm a parent too, as you guys know. And to learn how to manage behaviors is challenging. And so hopefully with these video sessions, you're able to kind of get a little bit more clarity and how behaviors work. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Um, and you guys also should have access to this packet that will be provided to you by the Health Builders team. Okay. All right. Here we go. So here is just the first page, behavioral principles. So the very first thing I want to go over is what is a behavior? Okay. So here it says a behavior is a central idea of the ABC model. Okay. So I'll go over what that means. Is that the majority of behaviors we displayed are learned. Okay. We are very specific about how we use the term behavior. When it's saying we, they're describing behavior analysts. Okay. So what I want you to take away from this is a behavior is an action that can be observed and counted or timed. Okay. So in this model, we want to define behaviors specifically. So all those working with a child will know what specific behavior is occurring. So, a lot of people may describe like, well, he was being mean. Well, what does that mean? Right? So being mean isn't really describing the behavior for me, right? So being mean could be like, well, he verbally um will say certain words that include cursing or demeaning language to people. That's how he's being mean. So now I know exactly what I'm looking for when it comes to the behavior. Feelings, they're sad or, they're angry. Feelings do not describe behaviors. A behavior is something that can be seen and observed, and it's something that you can count, right? How many times they do it. And so, a very big behavior amongst our teenagers that you will see is defiance. Defiance can be described and timed as not doing as they're told. So you give an instruction, they say no, and they do not complete whatever you ask them to do. And what do us parents struggle with the most? Chores, right? Getting our kids to do chores, getting our kids to do homework, right? Getting our kids to collaborate. So defiance could be counted as a behavior and it would be very specific to that child. So the way that behavior works, right, is there's always something that happens before the behavior, okay? And in this model, right, that happens to be an antecedent. An antecedent can also be known as a trigger, something that triggers the behavior to occur. So with the example that I just gave you, right, with chores, um, Adrián, please clean your room. The behavior is he says, no, I'm not going to do it. So the behavior is a defiant behavior where he's telling me no. But the behavior would not have occurred if I had not, right, made the request. So the antecedent, what happens before the behavior, will trigger the behavior. If I just let him be, he's not going to tell me no. He's not going to be defiant. See what I'm saying? Here's another example. Something that you might not be aware of, right? Is if my stomach is rumbling, right? My stomach is rumbling and it's telling me that it's hungry. I see the golden arches of a McDonald's and that represents food for me. My behavior might be to turn into the McDonald's and order hot and spicy McChicken sandwich, right? So my behavior is turning in to purchase McDonald's food. But the antecedent, what triggered me to do that? What triggered me to do that is I felt a sensory need in my belly of like, oh, you're really hungry, right? So even ourselves, we catch ourselves doing certain behaviors, and there's reasons why we do our certain behaviors, right? Um, and we start to develop a pattern. So when you go back here to the behavior, you're going to see that it's a learned behavior. A lot of our behaviors are learned. So to go back to the antecedent, what happens before the behavior, the antecedent is a situation or event that comes before a behavior. It is something described as a trigger for the behavior that follows. An antecedent can be an event, right? Telephone ringing, going a different route to school, a person, oops, um, a person, music teacher, but not the art teacher, or an object, a stop sign. You know, you see something in the environment that cues a person to do something. Okay. So we have the A, which is the antecedent. Then we have the B, which is the behavior. And then right after the behavior, something happens. Okay. There's something that always happens after the behavior. And this is something that we call the consequence. And the consequence in this type of setting, when it comes to behavior analysis, is not good and it's not bad. It just means this is the result of what happens after the behavior. Okay. So consequence describes what happens immediately after and in response to a behavior. Some consequences are natural, like getting a ticket for running a red light or getting a Coke after putting money into a vending machine. Others are planned, like giving a timeout when a child hits someone. Behaviors are learned over the years by imitating others or by being directly taught. So consequences are what help maintain a behavior. That is, it makes it more likely that the behavior will continue. For example, a child learns to raise her hand at school because the teacher calls on her. A child may learn not to hit if the consequence is losing time on the computer. So when you're looking at behavior, the antecedent and the trigger will cause the behavior, right? What happens right after the behavior will either increase the behavior and allow it to continue, or it will decrease the behavior, meaning like, I don't want to do this anymore. So in these instances, right, where it says consequences will help maintain behaviors, right? So if a child who has a lot of attention, right, and they raise their hand and they get called on and then they get praised for it, they're likely to continue to want to participate in raising their hand, right? It also gave an example, right, of a natural consequence. The natural consequence of if I run a red light and I get a ticket, the likelihood of me continuing to run red lights go down because I do not want to pay another really expensive ticket. So sometimes as parents, sometimes we are unintentionally reinforcing an undesired behavior, right? And that can be really hard. So we may very commonly, I see this a lot, and it's unintentional. It's not something that people do on purpose. But sometimes we will unintentionally, I'll give you an example. This is a really good example, okay? Is I like to pick on toddlers because, they're pretty easy to figure out, what what they're wanting. So sometimes you'll see parents at the grocery store and they have their child in the shopping cart, right? And you're strolling around the store and you're looking and you're getting groceries, and the toddler sees something that they want, okay? And they start gesturing, ooh, 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 ooh. Maybe it's a snack, maybe it's a toy, whatever it is. They start gesturing for that food item that they just saw. So the antecedent is they saw something that they wanted and they start gesturing for it. Okay. So you tell them, no, you're not going to get a toy and you're not going to get a snack. Typically, what happens in these situations is the toddler starts crying and they start like maybe like, oh no, I want that toy, I want that toy, or I want that food item, And so let's say the parent continues to say no. What's going to happen to that behavior? It's going to increase. It's going to get louder. Now you're into full tantrum, right? Arms flailing, head is being thrown back like it's the end of the world, right? And so one or two things is going to happen. One parent is going to be like, no, you're not going to get that, right? But then you will get the parent who's like, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing. The police are going to get called. DCS is going to come and take my kid. And they give them the item that they were crying for. So in that situation, that parent is reinforcing an undesired behavior, meaning you just taught them that by doing that behavior, they're going to get what they want. Okay. We've all fallen victim to that, right? We're all guilty to some degree of doing that because we are tired. We're tired and we don't always want to deal with kids. And so we give them what they want just so we have some peace. But just know that that could be a pattern that you're teaching your child, right? Now, if you would have continued to say no, typically what happens is the behavior gets worse and it spikes. Like they could be on the ground, but if you stick to your guns and you continue to say no, this is not how you get things, the behavior will eventually decrease. And this is what we call an extinction burst. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the consequence, what happens right after the behavior, is very, very important. Okay. So from here, we talk about what are functions of the behaviors? Like, why are they doing what they are doing? And the functions of the behaviors can be pretty tricky. Okay. So there are typically four functions of behavior. Okay. The one where I describe the child saying no to doing chores, right? They're being defiant. More likely, the reason for that function or why they're saying no is because they want to escape and or avoid a situation. Do your homework? No. Or I already did it. Lying can be a behavior. Um, they they are trying to escape or avoid a particular task or, something like that. The example of the little child raising their hand, to be called on could be is because they are getting attention, right? A lot of times kids will seek negative attention because they are getting some attention rather than no attention at all. And a lot of parents, we have fallen victim to this as well, is we always catch them doing what they're not supposed to, right? And so we will redirect, we will teach, we will do something to correct a behavior, and that's giving attention. And so a lot of times I'm going to tell people to flip what they're doing, catch them being good. Anytime that they're being good, they're doing well, notice it, give the positive attention, and then you're flipping it where you're not redirecting as much. The third function of behavior is that the child wants to get what they want, right? So the kid in the shopping cart wanted a toy, wanted a snack. This is what we call tangible access. They got what they wanted, right? So my son is really good at negotiating with me as far as if I do this, this, and this, can I get $20? Right? So typically his antecedent is he sees something that he wants, realizes he doesn't have money, and so he will ask for extra chores where he knows that he can get paid. He has his regular chores, but then I have a list of tasks that are paid chores, meaning I would pay someone else to do it if they don't want to do it. And they can get paid for that, right? Because he wanted to buy something. And the last one is a tricky one, right? Is the behaviors pleasing to the child or the person. So this is what we call the sensory input. Okay, it's automatically rewarding and or it can relieve anxiety. So the sensory input that I gave an example at the very beginning is when I was hungry, right? That's the sensory is like I'm hungry, I need to relieve my hunger. What's hard about sensory is that you can't always see it. You sometimes have to ask, right? Or you can assume like, oh, they look hungry or they're sleepy or they have a headache. Those are all kind of sensory inputs. Those feelings that they have inside and you see it in their face, sometimes, that can be something, um, you know, that is going to result in a sensory like behavior, right? So a headache of the behavior, putting your hands on your head, my head hurts or my belly hurts, or um, but it also talks about anxiety, relieving anxiety. So that relieving anxiety, for some of our children, they have what we call stimming. They stim. In doing that is they can hug themselves, they can rock themselves. Some people will like pull or pick or do those kinds of things, and that helps them relieve anxiety. Some of those stimming behaviors can be dangerous, and others would be appropriate depending on what it is. Okay. So again, here's the ABC model: the antecedent, the behavior, the consequence. Um, and I think this is kind of like where I'm going to stop for right now, just to give you an introduction to this. Um, I will have you guys go over this activity sheet, right, in identifying what the antecedent is. So Susan hits Fred after he takes the book she is looking at. So I'm going to do this one with you. So the behavior here, right, is Susan hits Fred. That's the behavior. Okay. So Susan hits Fred after he takes the book she is looking at. So the antecedent is what came before Susan hitting Fred is he took her book, right, that she was looking at. So he took the book and that triggered her to then hit him. Okay. So then I will ask you guys to try these. Um, and here are more examples. Okay. This is specifically being able to describe what aggression is and what disruptive is. And so the behavioral definition is, remember, something that you can see, something you can count. It's not a feeling. So it's something that you can describe. Um, Now, this worksheet is going to go over the functions of the behavior. So I'll do the first one with you. Ryan is given a turkey sandwich for lunch. Ryan falls to the floor and screams that he wants Pop-Tarts for lunch. His mother takes the sandwich away and starts toasting some Pop-Tarts. So with this example, is he trying to escape something? Is he trying to get attention? Is he trying to get what he wants? or is there an automatic reward, a sensory reward? So in this situation, it's to get what he wants. He did not want a sandwich. He wanted what? A Pop-Tart. Um, and again, here are other examples. So in our next session, I'm going to pull like very specific examples of functions, behaviors with specific functions, and to give you guys a guideline on how to respond to these um, when you are dealing with undesired behaviors. Okay. Again, if you have any questions about any of these things, don't hesitate to ask the Health Builders staff, Kyla and or Susie, and I will see you guys next time.